Hi Hans, it's great to be talking to you, man. It's an honor to do this interview. How have you been?
Um, Busy. I can say normally my life is quite simple, but when you come to the release of a new album, there is so much going on with interviews and promotion and so on. So uh, that's a good feeling coming right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, I imagine, and you have reasons to be happy. Your new album, Summer Green Leaves, will be released on the 28th of June. What can you reveal to your fans about this album?
Um, I think when our guitar player Per Nilsson joined the band in 2006, we recorded the album Angling Feelings. We started to find the form that we wanted to do with the Kaipa. And for each album, we reach a bit longer. And now it's 7 albums with the pair in the band, and I think it feels good. We are doing Kaipa music. We're trying to find something new, but for every album and every song. But I don't think it's necessary to change the basic structure of our music because we love it, and I think also people around the world also love uh, our way of writing and playing. So it's a continuation going on, and I'm surprised myself because after releasing an album, I often say to myself, this must be the last Kaipa album. How can I possibly come up with new ideas, writing new songs and lyrics, and do something even better, or at least the same quality as the previous album? But for some reason, there are new songs coming knocking on my door and saying, Hans, hi Hans, will you take care of me? And if it's a good melody, it's often in the morning when I drink my morning coffee, those small melodies comes creeping into my consciousness, and uh, I decide to make a short recording so I don't forget them. And if I return a few days later and still like the melody, uh, I continue to work. So the melodies are always the central of the songwriting where I'm starting. And if you listen to Kaipa's music, it's filled with small melodies, not only vocal melodies, a lot of instrumental melodies and small melodic fragments going on in the background, even on the bass, and so much small details. So uh, if I have a good melody to start with, it's a good sign. And sometimes it ends up with a song being 3 minutes, but mostly I find inspiration to make longer pieces. And uh, I think the longest track we have uh, released is from our album Mind Revolution. The title track is 25 minutes, but that's that's not my aim to write long songs. It's more what inspiration do I do I meet during the writing process.
Yeah, and it's been 50 years of that. I mean, 50 years of Kaipa, well, almost 60 for you yourself as a
Yeah,
musician. It's,
looking back at that, it's incredible that 6 years ago I made my first playing with a band. I was 16 years old, and when I look at that, I think it was 10 years. So much happened. We recorded our first single in 1965, and the same year we went to Oslo and was being the winner of Best Nordic Pop Group in Oslo, and that was fantastic. Just 1 year after starting as a musician, and then it all continued, and I think those years were probably the best education I ever could get, much better than going on in a music school, because this was for real. I was playing with other musicians, and I was also meeting the reactions from the audience, and that's
That's the most
something
important
different.
part.
Yeah, very important, and especially when you start to play, we could sit in the rehearsal room playing and saying this is fantastic, and then we go out and meet the audience, and no one is interesting. So well, but after 9 years, I decided to form a new band, and that was the beginning of Kaipa, and the rest is history. And we started from point zero because no one knew about the band, but we were ambitious and believed that our music could be reaching out at that time in the middle of Sweden, and then a little bit later all over Sweden or all over the Nordic countries, Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. And after 2 years, we were definitely the best known Scandinavian progressive rock band, or as the term in the 70s was not progressive rock band, it was symphonic rock.
Rock, yeah.
Yeah. So everything moved on then. It was 18 years of touring, and definitely some of the best years of my life. So much happened all the time.
Yeah, and now so many years later, you are still taking care of new melodies that come to you, and that's really, really good. And you should be proud of this new album. It's maybe one of your best albums ever. I don't know how you keep pushing this quality border even further, but you keep succeeding at doing that, and that's really great.
Yeah, thank you.
Despite having most of the songs sung in English, you always choose album titles that are in Swedish. Why do you do that?
In 2012, we released the album Vittjar, and that was the first time. And the story behind that is that I had written a song with Swedish lyrics and very folk music inspired. And I had no idea that it should be a Kaipa Kaipa song, I mean. But somehow I thought I made some changes in the arrangement and played it for Patrick and Alina, and they both said, "Wow, great! I want to sing that. No, I want to sing that." So the fact is, we made two recordings, one with Patrick and one with Alina, but we used the one with Patrick on the album, and I thought that should be just one thing happening with a Swedish lyrics and a Swedish title. But I suppose most people liked the idea with this. So when I worked on the next album called Satyg, I wrote a song and I called it Satyg, and it had Swedish lyrics. But for some reason, I decided to see what's happening if I change lyrics to English. And the fact is I liked it better. So this song was a translation of the title Sawtooth. And if you translate it to English, you can say Screwed Upness. And that is one of the songs on that album. It's called Screwed Upness, and I'm doing the lead vocal on that. And I think it turned out very good. But my problem was that I had decided that the album should have a name, and the name should be Sawtooth. And I wanted to have a song with that title. So I had to write a small little short song, one of the most folk music influenced songs in the Kaipa catalog, called Sawtooth, and included that on the album. So then suddenly we had two albums, Swedish titles, and I thought that that was enough. So the next album, we went back to all songs in English and an English title, Children of the Sounds. But then once again, I wrote a piece of music that I felt it was coming from the ancient woods in Sweden, not touched for 100 years. You know, when you're walking long into the woods and you walk there all by yourself, there's a special feeling. In Swedish, it's called urskog, and I thought that should be a great title for the album. And so I and made it a vocal melody with Swedish lyrics. And in that on that song, Patrick and I are singing in unison. So we're singing together, not second harmonies, but we're singing together, and our voices are similar. So if you listen, you think maybe that is just one person, but we're singing it together. And often I have the question from people, why don't you sing anymore, Hans? You know, I was the lead singer on the two first Kaipa albums in the 70s and also on our fifth album. And then when Patrick joined the band in 2001, everyone thinks that all male vocals are sung by Patrick, but I sing at least on one track on all the albums since 2003. And on the new album, I have the lead vocals on the song Chased by Wolves and Burned by the Sun. So you can listen to that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, and they still have that connection to the Swedish language. That's great. You know, personally, I think that's not so great because then I can't pronounce properly the name of the albums. But that's a different story. Um, now, moving on. What is the lyrical concept behind this album?
I had written several songs. One is called Like Thousand Thorns, and one is called Songs in Our Hands, and the opening phrase is A Whispering Dawn. And there are also a song called Seven Birds, where the lyrics is in the evening and it's dusk and twilight. And I had written all the songs, and all were in English, and it was 70 minutes of music, and I thought it was a little bit too long. But when I listened to it, there was such a nice flow, so I didn't want to cut anything to shorten the total playing time. But then suddenly something happened when I was recording with Alina Gibson one day, and we took a break and went out in my garden to have a cup of coffee, and suddenly she started to sing a few notes, and I said, wow, that's beautiful. And she said, "Okay, Hans, let's go back in the studio and write a song." And so we did. And it took us 15 minutes to write this song that now is the title track of the album. And we both said, this sounds so typical Swedish in the music, so it should have a Swedish lyrics, and it should definitely be on the album. And so a few weeks later, also when I was sitting with my morning coffee, the words came to me directly, and I just wrote them down on a piece of paper. And I realized that this Swedish words are about, the first verse is about the dusk when the sun is going down, and the second part is about the dawn when the light's coming back, and that felt very, very natural because several of the songs, as I mentioned, are dealing with this. So I decided to cut the song in two pieces and use one as the opening track and one as the closing track. And then I made a single edit version of the song where it's all the parts are included like it was from the beginning. And then the record company Inside Out said, you must have that single edit on the album too. So we decided to use it as a bonus track. And that means that there is a little bit of 10 minutes of music more. So now the total playing time is just above 80 minutes. And that was not my intention from the beginning, but sometimes things happens, unexpected things, you know.
Yeah, and bonus tracks don't really count for the length of an album, I think.
Yeah.
It's like the bonus. Then yeah. And you were just talking about this recurring dawn theme. You already mentioned this dawn in some of your first albums and songs like Sevar Morgan Grey or Dagen Sport. Were you trying to go back to your roots in some way?
I think especially this folk music melodies was something I heard already as a little boy, because my father, he was not a musician, but he had a violin and he used to pick it up and play some of these old Swedish traditional folk music songs. And that's been a part of my life all the time. And already on our first album, I wrote a small piece called Skogspromenad. That means forest walk. So I try to keep this not in the 60s, because then you only should pop songs. No, all songs 2 minutes 30 seconds. You know.
Yeah.
But in the 70s, I try to incorporate more things in the music when I started to write my own songs, and the folk music melodies was a natural part of it. And when I uh, decided to start this Kaipa version 2 in 2001, already on the first album Notes from the Past, there are many of those folk music melodies you can hear, and I try to keep it all the time, that they are included in the music, that the music is a mix of I used to say I don't like labels, but you need to have a label, and I used to say that we are a folk fusion progressive rock band, and that's how I like it to be. The fusion side is of course natural with the fantastic musicians I'm working with, and the folk music is really, and this was even more characteristic when I started to invite our guest musicians, Elin Rubinstein on violin and Fredrik Lindqvist from the band Ritual on recorders and whistles. That underlines the folk music melodies very much. So I think it feels good.
Yeah, it definitely does. And now that you're talking about your comeback album in 2001, I just remembered Seven Birds and the Spiderweb Train that are in this album were written already back then, right? Would you like to tell the
Yeah,
story behind those songs?
yeah. I when Kaipa when we quit Kaipa in 1982, we did thought we should meet again and play some year later, but it never happened. But I couldn't just leave the music, so I wrote new songs and I recorded 3 solo albums during the 80s, which these 3 albums were re-released in 2019 in a 6 CD box, because I found so much unreleased music when I started to work with this. So it ended up with a 6 CD box called Hans Lundin, The Solo Years. And after that, in the 90s, I continued to write songs, but I didn't record or release any albums. So I had so many songs, and I thought I think it was in year 2000, I thought I must make a new album. And I contacted Roy Stolt, my old partner and guitar player, and we listened through the material, and I said we should make a double album, but it ended with a single one. And that means there was a lot of songs that didn't come on the Notes from the Past album. And then I forget them totally. I never thought about that. But one day, a few years ago, I found a cassette, a tape cassette, and it was written demos from the 90s. And when I started to listen to this, there were some of the songs we had recorded, but there were also several songs I immediately remembered, and I said to myself, this I really like a lot. So I came up with the idea maybe I could use something of these melodies on the new album. The problem was that it was recorded during the 90s on a Atari computer, mostly famous because you could play games on this. But I had a simple MIDI recording program called Logic Notator, and I couldn't record audio files, but I could record MIDI and send them to all my keyboards, and then I could mix it down on a cassette. And every song was saved on a floppy disk. And I managed to bring life in this old Atari computer, and I don't know how I did it, but somehow I managed to get the songs into my modern recording system I use today, and I could read these MIDI files. They were named, so it could be a name called saying that this is a Yamaha TX802 synthesizer, and the program number. And then I went out and looked for if I still had that synthesizer, and in most cases I still had them, but I hadn't used them for many years. So I connected a MIDI cable and clicked on play with the right program number, and suddenly, wow, there was the sound from the cassettes with some fantastic sounds, and that really inspired me. So I started a long, hard work to build up these songs again, and made some changes. The song that now is called Spiderweb Train, it was more than 20 minutes in the original version, so I deleted some parts and made some new bridges and decided to uh, use some of the melodies because everything was instrumental. I hadn't recorded any vocals, so it was. But I thought immediately this should be great as a vocal tracks. So I uh, wrote lyrics, and in the case of the song Seven Birds, it had the same name on this old Atari version, and I liked the title so much, so I decided to write lyrics inspired by that. And it means also that I play some solos and melodies, uh, and I decided to use them uh, on this new album. So some of the solos on both of these songs I recorded as MIDI files in 25 years ago, and that's great that you can record it today as an audio file when you address it to the same synthesizer, and you can have that sound. Uh, it's a nice meeting of the past and the future, I think.
Yeah, it definitely is. And can we expect some of those other tracks that you haven't listened to yet or have listened but not worked on them yet? That can we expect them to be released in future albums of Kaipa?
You mean some of more of this old, or what
Yeah,
do you
yeah.
mean? No. Oh, or maybe if I listen to the cassette one more time, I can find there. Of course, there were some great melodies, but first of all, it's interesting to write new music. Uh, I thought it was just when I heard these songs, it gave me so much inspiration. But maybe I pick up someone in the future if there will be some future more albums. You know, I'm 76 years old now. Maybe it's time to sit back and just relax. But somehow those melodies they keep coming and knocking on my door. So uh, I don't have control over it.
Yeah, as long as they keep coming, I think you should keep releasing them so all the world can enjoy them as much as you do.
Yeah, yeah. It's I think the music is keeping me young.
Yeah.
It's important for me as a person to have this thing to fill my life with.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Um, you know, and as you're saying, you already have more than 60 years of career under your belt. What can your fans still expect from you?
uh, I don't know. I have no intention to do something special. Uh, if I can continue working with these fantastic musicians I have in the band, and do some more recording in the future. It can be 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years. It doesn't matter because the only thing I care about is should be 100% good from my opinion, and also from the other musicians. And if that uh, situation again, I'm more happy. I have no intention to do something else. You know, there are situations in your life when you always trying to find these new things. The 80s was filled with programming synthesizer sounds. I think I spent at least 1 year of my life just doing this because there was new things coming. There was constant evolution with new synthesizers and new sounds. And when I started to play with my first synthesizer, there was no chance to save the programs. There were no programs. You had to turn the knobs in real time while you were playing to get the correct sounds. In the 80s, suddenly you could save it, and first you could save 20 sounds. Or on my first one of my first polyphonic synthesizers that I still have, a true classic. It's called Yamaha CS60. I heard this first time when I heard the album by the UK band called UK with Bill Bruford, Alan Holsworth. I suppose you know about that. They had the first version of this, a big one called CS80, more heavy than a Hammond organ. And they were really expensive. So I managed to deal with Yamaha and buy this smaller version called CS60. And to return to this memories, this synthesizer from 1978, it had one memory. And when you came into the 80s, you could have 20 memories, and you could have memories on special cards. So I spent a lot of time trying to find new sounds, and for every recording I wanted to bring in new sounds. But a few years later, there were sound banks, and you could buy a synthesizer with 600 sounds programmed by a Japanese musician. But the fact is that I like my own sounds much better. But that was what happened then. Now I'm happy with having a basic setup of my favorite instruments and write songs and record.
If you had to rate on the albums that you ever played in, on which position would the São Margarinian News be?
You mean if I compare all 15 Kaipa albums?
Yeah.
The feeling always is that the last album is the best. And I think the reactions has been so great this time, even if I haven't read any reviews, but the reactions from people around us and even from the musicians in the band, that everyone think this is a really great album, and it's so many good songs and melodies. It's maybe not technically advanced as some of the previous albums, but there's a very nice flow in it. So I would probably rank this as our best. But I think all albums from 2015 and on, Children of Sounds and Urskog are almost the same quality. I like them all very much. And if I go back to the 70s, I would say our best album was our second, 1976, Inget nytt under solen, Nothing New Under the Sun. That was the peak of the first Kaipa.
Yeah, definitely. But this album, as I said previously, this album is also really, really great. Now, next year you will celebrate the 50th anniversary of your debut album. Are you preparing anything special to celebrate that special date with your friends?
Haven't thought about this at all. Maybe I meet the other original members and have a beer. The last time we were meeting all together was in 2005 when Inside Out released the 5 CD box Kaipa, the Decca Years. That was our 3 first albums and 2 bonus tracks. One of them a live album from Copenhagen in Denmark. And at that time, we decided to bring all the original members from the 70s and also our bass player that played in 1978, 77, 78, 79, Mats Lindberg. So we had a meeting, and that was very nice. And that is 19 years ago. So maybe it's time, but all the old albums have been remastered and released several times, and also on vinyl. So I don't think we can do much more with the music and release it, but it's great, and it's a great feeling to realize that the albums we recorded in Sweden with Swedish lyrics, we had no idea at that time that these albums should be classified as milestones in the progressive rock, Scandinavian progressive rock history. So that realize that people are sitting all around the world listening to these old albums today is of course fantastic, and some kind of a late victory for all our efforts during the 70s.
Yeah, it definitely is. Now going back to your new album, to Somar Green Leaves. Which plans do you have to present this album live so far?
Present it live.
Yeah, like shows.
No, you know my answer. The last live performance with Kaipa was in December 1982. And when I restarted the band in 2001, I said from the start that this should be a studio project, recording, and we have never discussed playing live. Maybe Alina said sometimes, "Oh, I would go out and play this live, stand on the stage," and then I take her back on earth and say, it's impossible. First of all, if we should try to do this, like Per Nilsson, our guitar player, said, if we should play this and use the arrangements we are having, we should have at least one or maybe two more guitar players, and we should have at least one or two keyboard players, because the Kaipa music, there are so many layers, so much happening in the background. So if you should go on stage and make this possible, you should need a big band. And I am some kind of a perfectionist. So if if I if in my dreams I should go on doing this on stage, of course I should want it to sound like we want it to sound, not something coming halfway just because we should go out and play live. That's I wouldn't like to return from a tour like that and seeing it on YouTube, a lot of phone recordings, filming, and saying, "Wow, that was not good." You understand what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I was hoping
Yeah.
that you would make an exception, also with the 15th anniversary of your debut album coming. I was
No,
hoping that you would
and
make an exception for that.
people say, "Okay, you can come together and make a DVD." and make one performance so we can see it. But it's the same work. I have no idea of what chords I'm playing on all these albums. Just some of the simpler melodies. I know the chord structures. I should have to sit down and learn all these, and the same with the other musicians. You can try to ask Jonas Reingold if you go to a Steve Hackett concert and ask him to play some of the bass lines on a Kaipa song. I don't think he remember it. Even if you are exceptional good musicians, you must learn the songs, and in a band you must play together to get them tight, and that takes time with such complex music. So no, if I should have nightmares for months if just thinking of remembering all these chords, figure out what I was playing 20 years ago. So
Yeah.
sorry. Okay.
Yeah, it would be great to see you, but the way you put it, it's logic that you don't want to do it. Well, Hans, I think that's it. Thank you so much. It was an honor to do this interview. Would you like to send any message to your Portuguese fans?
Okay, what should I say?
Whatever you want.
Hello, this is Hans Lundin from Sweden and the band Kaipa. I really hope you like our new album, Sommargryningsljus.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
Okay, nice
Yeah.
talking to you.
Yeah, man.
Okay, bye bye.